Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with more Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. It took some time, but I am finally ready to present my full list after ranking all 199 classes, subclasses, and prestige classes in the game. This video compiles the work of a 30-part series assessing every class in the game, and there's a link in the description for my playlist of those videos. If you have questions about why a particular class received the ranking it did that isn't answered here, please leave a comment or by all means check those videos out. Before we jump into things, I want to give a huge thank you to the community for the support I have experienced, not only while making this series, but during the lifespan of the channel. So many of you have been regular viewers who provided feedback, perspective, and support for the work that I have been doing. There's no way I can name all of you, but I did want to throw up a few names that have kept me honest, let me know how much they appreciated the content, and just in general made doing this a ton of fun. Thank you for helping to make my experience as a creator so fulfilling. A couple of other notes before we get started. These classes were ranked as if you were taking them to level 20. Some classes are fantastic dips, and I mentioned that while walking through the mechanics, but it did not help their ranking. The exception to this is prestige classes, which oftentimes are only viable as a dip, so they are ranked on a different scale. In addition to the mechanics, these classes were ranked on their thematic pool. So classes such as Crusader or Cavalier of the Paw could get a ranking boost not just based on their mechanics, but also because of the amazing unique playthrough the class can provide the player. Also, for those who are not familiar with the series, we took each base class and then ranked all of the subclasses against that class. We did not rank these classes against each other. For example, when figuring out what to rank Primalist, I did not compare it to Kineticist. I believe ranking all of the classes against each other would have made it very difficult to provide value for players. Instead, by taking the base class and its archetype separately, I could rank them in a bubble that made it easier to identify which classes are good. If you want a class that is great in mounted combat, you don't care how Cavalier ranks next to War Priest, because War Priest doesn't do what you are looking for. Consequently, when you look at this list, you might see classes that are ranked the same, but in your mind, they are not close in terms of effectiveness. The ranking is indicative of how good that class is at what it's supposed to do, not how good it is in comparison with all of the other classes. Now, despite all of this, just to make things a little more spicy, I have added a number next to each individual class, so there is a number 1 class in the game. My final note is a reminder of something that I've said before. Pick what is fun for you. There's not a single class on this list that you cannot complete the game with, even on unfair. Mythic paths provide a ton of power, and companions are fantastic as well. You do not have to min-max to have a fantastic time playing Pathfinder. Think through what type of playstyle is going to be fun for you, and then pick a class that fits with that, regardless of where it's ranked. You'll probably have a much better time than you would trying to take a top 5 class. With all of that being said, let's get started. First up, we have 8 F-ranked classes. F means I think these classes are completely trash, and there's virtually no reason to take them. Honestly, I don't think there's much to talk about here. Assassin is pretty much universally regarded as the worst class in the game. Supposedly, Owlcat plans to release a patch that will make poison builds viable, but that hasn't happened yet, so it should be avoided like the plague. Hagbound is probably a D ranking mechanically, but I rank it even lower because it doesn't follow through on the thematic experience that it promises. The capstone ability does not change you into a hag, even though that body type is available in the game. Hexcrafter is the only class listed here I ever seriously considered moving up to a D. I know a few of you enjoy it, but frankly, I think Witch and Magus is an extremely poor combination and consequently see no reason to move this class. Bottom line, this is the bottom of the barrel, and I do not recommend these options at all. Next, we have 23 D rank classes. D means that this class has a cool mechanic or two, so it's not completely worthless, but overall it's inferior to other options. I have downgraded Warrior of the Holy Light from a C to a D. When breaking down the mechanics, I completely missed that it does not get any paladin spells. That's a huge loss. It makes it hard to recommend this class. I raised Traditional Monk from F to a D based on feedback from the community. I think the key powers you lose make it clearly a worse option compared to a base monk, but there are many of you who value it for the rapid will saving throws increase. Personally, I don't like the trade-off, but I do concede that the class is not worthless, so I've moved it up to a D. This is another section where I don't feel like there's a whole lot to argue. Aldori Sword Lord is way too narrow, Dragonair Scion is missing crucial mechanics, Psychokineticist pales in comparison to its base class, etc, etc. Moving on, we have 43 C rank classes, and here's where things get a little bit interesting. This ranking serves two purposes. The first purpose is to house average classes that weren't necessarily terrible, but they just didn't provide particularly compelling mechanics. The second purpose is to serve as a dumping ground for base classes that I felt were redundant with clearly superior options. For example, you'll notice that Alchemist is here. Alchemist is actually a fantastic class with some great mechanics, but there's absolutely no reason for you to pick an Alchemist over a Grenadier. Consequently, I've placed Alchemist here not because it's average, but more so because it serves no purpose. Another example is Blood Rager, which should never be chosen over its subclass, Primalist. This portion of the list also has my most controversial ranking in the entire series, and I think it's worth revisiting why the class is placed here. Many people felt that putting Paladin at C was a gross underestimation of the class, but I stand by this ranking. The reason Paladin is a C is because it's difficult to create a Paladin that is better than Seela. Therefore, it is in my estimation, if you are running a good aligned party and you value having a Paladin on that team, you are almost certainly taking Seela with you. While Paladin's mechanics are great, they are not so great that a team really benefits from two Paladins, so in my mind this class serves no purpose. I recognize there are a couple of people who either keep Seela on the bench and run their own Paladin, or they double up on Paladins. It's my humble estimation the amount of people playing this way could fit in a thimble, and the vast majority of you are either using Seela or could care less about Paladin. This issue is not shared by any of the classes that other party members have. Greybor, Arushale, Regil, and Soseo all have builds that could use improvement. Land and Windowalk are for the most part mutually exclusive. Ember, Camellia, and Nanio all have classes that could be customized in a completely different fashion by an MC. Finally, Woj's build leans hard into dual wielding, therefore an Eldritch Scoundrel focused on casting would not be redundant on the team. Seela stands alone. Alchemist and Chirurgeon were originally ranked Bs only because I assessed them in my first video of the series, so I was a little too careful about demoting classes. Both of them are inferior to Grenadier and don't provide anything that class doesn't, so they belong at C. Outside of that, you have a bunch of middle-of-the-road classes like Flame Dancer and Mixed Blood Rager. None of these are really providing you with game-altering power. Next, we have our largest section, 56 B-rank classes. B means this is a great class, but the game will still be challenging while you play it. Incense Synthesizer was originally a C because I felt like considering all the options you have for buffing, it didn't make sense the player would choose this. After feedback from the community, I have upped it to a B since it does provide powerful stats in a very unique way. It's still not worthy of a higher ranking in part because no party members easily slide into this role, so you would have to get a merc to make use of this class or roll yourself as a support character, which I don't think most players do. It should also be stated that the mist this class creates to buff your party has no visual marker or indicator, which makes it a less satisfying playstyle than its counterparts. Elemental Engine moves from a D to a B+ because I misread the mechanics and mistakenly believed it weakened gather power. It does not once you reach maximum burn, so this class is a stronger option than I gave it credit for. Hell Knight Signifer was originally a D in part because I believe the capstone ability was not implemented in the game. While the mask that is supposed to be paired with the buff does not exist, the game does automatically provide the capstone bonus, and due to that along with some other feedback, I have bumped it up a little bit. Looking at the overall list, these are basically the classes that are solid in the game. Options like Grenadier, Colluding Scoundrel, and War Priest are not going to help you just mollywop past enemies, but you can have a relatively painless core difficulty playthrough. Moving on, we have 46 A-ranked classes. An A ranking means that not only is this a fantastic class, but it makes the game easier or more enjoyable. Spawn Slayer has been upgraded from an A to an A+. When going through its mechanics, I completely forgot that Study Target is automatically applied when you deal sneak attack damage. That means losing the ability to Study Target as a swift action really isn't that big of a deal, and that class loses virtually nothing in exchange for damage boost against large enemies. Originally I had Beast Tamer at B because in my opinion summoning is weak in this game. I moved it up to A because after reviewing all the classes in the game, I believe Beast Tamer is the best one for summoning, and there are a lot of accessories that support this playstyle. I still wouldn't call summoning a great option, but if you are determined to go that route, Beast Tamer is your best bet. Hunter has been lifted from a C to A+. I originally ranked it C because Divine Hound was a clear upgrade over the base class. After that ranking came out, a patch was released changing animal focus buffs from enhancement to inherent. This makes them significantly more useful and also makes Hunter a class that stands well on its own. In that same vein, I have lifted Urban Hunter from B+ to A+ as well. Finally, I downgraded Student of Stone from S to A. I love the thematic pull of the class and think it's a super cool way to play the game. That being said, I don't think those thematic benefits raise the obvious mechanical issues all the way to S level. I jumped out the window a little bit on this one, my bad. Looking at the list, these are all classes where you can have a really strong playthrough both mechanically and thematically. Whether you are choosing Quarterstaff Master, Cross-Blooded, or Rowdy, these are strong options that will give you a smoother time in the game. Finally, we have the almighty S ranking. S means not only is this a great class, but also it makes playing the game significantly easier, possibly even a cakewalk. Vivisectionist was originally ranked an A, but after going through the rankings, I've bumped this up to an S. It's still not as strong an option as it was in Kingmaker, but playing as Vivisectionist makes the game significantly easier. It's probably the best roguelike class in the game. I lifted up Wandering Marksman from a B all the way to S. With the Hunter patch we previously spoke about, this class can now add a bonus of 8 to a pet's AC. Animal Focused Tiger provides a +6 inherent bonus to dexterity, which will give you +3 AC, and Self-Reliance provides a +5 morale bonus to AC as long as you are more than 10 feet away from your pet, which is very easy to do. I think it's worth noting that Hell Knight has an S rating not only due to its mechanics, but also because there's more reactivity to this class than any other class in the game. Nobody cares if you are a Mutation Warrior or a Sword Saint. Several people care if you are a Hell Knight, and there are multiple dialogues that specifically reference this throughout the game. Also, I am a big fan of Dragon Disciple and think it's a super cool class, both mechanically and thematically. I recognize that there are some issues with taking the 4-level dip, and it's probably not as strong as it seems on paper. Despite this, I am leaving it at its S ranking, and yes, that's probably a personal bias. Looking at the full list, I think it's hard to argue any of these classes don't belong. Elemental Specialist allows you to take full advantage of the game's preference for fire, and Beast Rider will let you choose from the full range of pets while also providing fantastic charging capabilities. It's pretty much impossible to go wrong here. Quick note before we get to the top 5 classes in the game. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you subscribing and hitting the like button. This information tells me which content the community is enjoying and helps my videos spread to more people. I really appreciate all of the support. Alright, with all of that out the way, let's get into our top 5 classes in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Coming in at number 5 is Ecclesiarch, a subclass under Cleric. Clerics get an incredible suite of spells, and Ecclesiarch is more focused on spellcasting than any other cleric option. You also get 2 domains, allowing a player to make full use of fantastic domain abilities such as Guarded Hearth and Vision of Madness. While this did not count towards the ranking, I think it should be noted that Ecclesiarch is a phenomenal choice to use with the Angel Mythic path. You can combine their spellbooks and annihilate powerful evil enemies with Bolt of Justice, while also providing your party with stellar defensive buffs. This class gives you a lot of power while also having a ton of flexibility, and it's just really fun to play. Coming in at number 4 is Instinctual Warrior, a subclass of Barbarian. This class essentially combines a Barbarian with a Monk. Wisdom increases when you rage, your Wisdom bonus is added to AC, and you are able to select some key powers in the place of rage powers. The really cool thing about this class is you automatically get Blind Fight and all of its upgrades. Blind Fight is one of the best ways of dealing with concealment, which is your enemy's most annoying defense mechanic. Some people are confused and think the True Seeing spell takes care of all your issues with concealment, but that is actually not the case. True Seeing only allows you to see through concealment due to a magic spell like Blur or Displacement. Enemies have other ways of gaining concealment, and in those situations, Blind Fight will be more useful to you. The only spell that gives you Blind Fight is Echolocation, which you can only use on yourself, so it's very difficult to give the entire team this capability. Playing a class that has rage powers, key powers, Blind Fight with all of its upgrades, and wisdom bonuses applied to AC just makes you an absolute monster. Thematically, I really like the idea of combining this with Gold Dragon. You are a creature of rage who through wisdom has somehow learned to channel your power in a controlled manner that lets you see through enemy deceptions. The massive increases Gold Dragon provides to your damage and attribute scores certainly don't hurt. Next at number 3 we have Sorcerer. This class allows you to choose bloodlines that give you spells, feats, and unique abilities. There were many people who felt this ranking was wrong, and that Sylvan Sorcerer, which gives you a pet, is the best version of this class, but I strongly disagree. A big part of the joy in playing Sorcerer is being able to choose a bloodline that matches the theme you have for the playthrough. Demons can choose the Abyssal bloodline, devils can pick the Infernal bloodline, liches can choose the Undead bloodline, so on and so forth. Sylvan Sorcerer forces you into the Sylvan bloodline, which provides inferior spells that do little to enhance your playthrough mechanically or thematically. Therefore, in my opinion, it is absolutely worse than a base Sorcerer, and I fully accept this is a ranking where I've placed thematic value over pure mechanics. Regardless of which version you choose, Sorcerer is one of the most powerful casters in the game. It doesn't have the spell variety of wizards, but that is made up for by the amount of spell slots you have, your bloodline, and multiple items throughout the game that add more spells for spontaneous casters. This class can combine its spellbook with Lich, and your focus on charisma will turn this into a very deadly combination. Whether you want to be an elemental blaster, curses specialist, or blow enemies up with incredible area of effect spells, Sorcerer will give you a fantastic playthrough. At number 2 we have Scald. This class allows your Inspire Rage ability to apply Barbarian Rage powers onto your entire team. You can have a setup that adds +5 attack rolls, double crit damage, and +1 to your crit modifier for the whole squad every time you Inspire Rage. That is bananas and makes a huge difference in your playthrough. It's also a fantastic utility option that gets a lot of class skills, a huge increase to knowledge and lore skill checks, and you can scribe scrolls. More than any other class in this top 5 list, Scald makes your entire team much better. The class skills and focus on critical damage will benefit tremendously from a Trickster Mythic Path run. Picking up the crit maximizing feats of Trickster and combining them with Scald mechanics is an absolutely bonkers playthrough. But at the end of the day, only one class can sit in the top spot, and surprise surprise, in a game about stopping demons, the number 1 class is Demon Slayer, a subclass of Ranger. There are several reasons why this sits at number 1. First of all, it's one of the easiest classes to play in the game. Demon Slayer favorite enemy automatically targets demons, which are by far the most plentiful enemies in the game. Combat style feats allow you to choose which combat style fits the playthrough that you want. This means even if you are completely new to the game, you could just pick archery or two-handed combat, and the class will provide you a list of the core feats you should be sure to pick up. On top of all that, you can pick up a pet, and you get 4 levels of spells, which are very useful for buffing yourself along with your pet. Mechanically, this class is absolutely monstrous, but just as importantly, it fits like a glove thematically. The only description provided for this class is, Demon Slayers are known for their expertise in the destruction of demons. So in a game about a country that has been overrun by an invading demonic force, your class is tailor-made for dealing with this kind of problem. Why you are so good at destroying demons is completely up to you. Could be you are a demon yourself and have grown used to carving up your kinsmen to gain more power in the abyss. Could be you have a deep love of the law and despise anyone you see trampling over it. Whatever playstyle you have in mind, Demon Slayer will fit right in. Easiest class to play, fantastic mechanics, a pet and some spell casting, plus thematically the world is your oyster. Demon Slayer is the #1 class in the game. That is my list ranking all 199 classes, subclasses, and prestige classes in the game. One final time, thank you so much for this experience. I really enjoyed putting out this series and creating this list. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.